where you go get the rental car, in front of you, there's a fence around it, and there's like tents. It's like third world country. It's really sad. Yeah. Well, I mean, that could be us. I mean, we don't see a lot of that around here in the summer because it's way too hot. They would like bake to death. But California has such a great year-round temperature. That's how that's, and they have, I think, probably some more liberal laws.
My best friend lives in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, sure.
Most, well, half. But she's in and it was out on the beach. And they passed a local ordinance that the bathrooms, the restrooms for the beach goers, that's what they go to 24/7, so they can go in and shower.
It's terrible. It's a horrible problem. It's totally out of control. Homelessness in California.
I promise I wore deodorant.
Somebody even told me that in San Francisco, they have an app that you put on your phone on where the defecation is on the sidewalk, so you don't walk it. Is that horrible? Sorry. Yeah, chocolate chips. How's your dinner?
There is an on item that we never have agenda changes for a reason. We decided to send the rules to sign accommodating a request from Premier. So this is coming on as an agenda change. So
I asked the same question.
Under Lieutenant Ford, do you have any questions?
2-minute warning.
Every second item.
2-minute warning.
Can I brought?
No, I can't do this.
Okay.
We need a big gavel.
Hello, Randy. Nice to see you.
Hey, Mel, how you doing?
All right.
I saw you from a distance and I talked to Gwen from.
Okay. And I told John.
Okay. Okay.
You got 80 units. We're 2 days less than this is my good friend Alex. I'm off the schedule. And there's got to are more speakers. You got to have speakers in the
I'm glad you said. Okay. All right.
Yeah, no,
Thanks, Claire.
was upset.
Okay, we got about 1 minute.
15 seconds.
15 seconds.
Everybody's here too. Which is great.
Happy crew tonight so far.
Yeah.
I know who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Show them together.
I know who I am. I hope you know who you are.
Oh, that's
Discovered your inner self.
Yeah.
You discovered your inner self.
Yeah.
I guess I can check.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything but market rental rate here. But
Okay, it is 6 p.m.
Yeah, perfect.
6 p.m. We're going to call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Boca Raton Airport Authority. And just so everyone knows, we are being recorded. So we'll call the meeting to order. And with that, let's do a roll call. Here.
Present.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Okay, we have everyone here, and first order of business then is the approval of the previous meeting's minutes from October 20th.
Second.
Motion from Mel and a second from Bob. Any discussion, any changes, edits? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimously approved. Agenda changes. Ms. Ben, are there any agenda changes?
Yes, sir. We would like to respectfully request to add item 8B related to a memorandum of agreement concerning the lease agreement between the Airport Authority and Premier Aviation to the agenda.
Okay, and where would we have that in the agenda then?
It will be new item 8B,
Okay.
following the special event request, so under tenant reports and
Tenant
requests.
reports and requests, okay. I guess we need a motion, is that correct?
Yes,
To
sir.
approve that change, so
So moved.
let's take a motion to add that item. Cheryl and Mel, first and second. Any questions about? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll add that to the agenda at that point. Public request. If any member of the public wishes to provide comment on any item, the time to do so is now. Please complete a public comment card identifying the item upon which you wish to be heard and provide it to Ms. Landers here to my left. The public comment cards are located in the back of the room. Each member of the public wishing to comment will be provided with 5 minutes to do so. The chair reserves the right to move the public comment opportunity on a specific agenda item to the point in the agenda when that item is to be considered and or to extend the allotted time per speaker. So, Ms. Landers, are there any public comment cards?
No.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Ms. Ben, is there any items on the consent agenda?
No, sir.
Are there any federal, state, or municipal input?
Yes, sir.
Next item, 7, financial report, the presentation of the October 2021 financial report. And Randy is our secretary treasurer. Any comments or introduction?
No, first month of our new fiscal year was October, so it's a 1 month report. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jada.
Jada?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jada Stewart, Accounting Coordinator. In your package is the financial report through October 31st, 2021. As you can see, total operating revenues year to date are approximately $464,000. Total operating expenses year to date are approximately $326,000. And net income before depreciation is approximately $138,000. Overall revenues are 2% above budget year to date, primarily due to the seasonal nature of fuel flowage and custom revenues. Expenses are down approximately 75% to budget year to date due to project expenses incurred but not yet received. On behalf of Airport Management and the Secretary Treasurer, we respectfully present the October 2021 financial report to the Airport Authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Jada. Any questions for Jada? Looking for a motion to approve the October financial report.
Motion. Second.
Rich and Mel, a second. Okay. Any other question? Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion approved. Thank you, Jada. Next item 8, tenant reports and requests, Atlantic Aviation special event request. Travis Bryant was going to do this report. Travis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Airport Management received a request from Atlantic Aviation and BRAA Air Charter. Hold a special event on January 7th next year. This will be a joint initiative between BRAA, the DuPont Registry, and Excel Auto Benefit, the Historical Society, and the Brooklyn History Museum. Be entirely encapsulated around 8 or 9 as usual with the BRAA crowd, and they're expecting approximately 300 people with valley parking and security plans to be approved once received. Any questions, Airport Management recommends resolution number 112621 for BRAA to hold a special event on January 7th.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Randy and Cheryl. Any discussion, any questions?
My only comment is I've heard great things about the newly enhanced history museum, including the wall that they have devoted to the airport, and I hope to make it over there soon to see that.
And with Excel and DuPont Registry, it's going to be a show.
How can you go wrong?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, then we'll take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, unanimously approved. Thank you. Thanks, Travis. Okay, next item is the one we just added to the agenda, 8B, Premier Aviation Memorandum of Agreement concerning the lease agreement. So, Ms. Bennett, I'll turn it to you to introduce this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You do have a handout, right, the board members?
That is correct. We have in front of you the memo summarizing the request and the recommendation by Airport Management and Airport Legal Counsel. as well as the memorandum of understanding that has been prepared by Airport Legal Counsel and coordinated through Premier's Legal Counsel, and the associated resolution prepared to accompany the item. Just as a way of background, you'll remember that earlier this year in March, we received a notice from Premier Aviation of their intent to exercise the 3 option periods that are available within the terms of the lease for years 36, 41, and 46. That triggered an appraisal process whereby the airport authority hired an appraiser, Premier hired an appraiser. The 2 appraisal reports were prepared, and there was enough of a variance between the 2 appraisal reports that that triggered a 3rd appraisal. A 3rd appraiser was selected by the 2 appraisers and contracted by Premier and the airport authority in May. The appraisal report for the 3rd appraisal prepared by the 3rd appraiser was received in October. Per the terms of the lease, there is a process whereby the math is done by people who know how to do math, and that would determine the rates for those 3 option periods for each of the 3 development phases within the overall lease parcel. And that's outlined in the memo as well as in the memorandum of agreement. So in essence, the base rent currently, for summary purposes, is 31 cents per square foot, approximately. The appraisal process determined that the market rental rate for the 36th year for phase 1 will be 82 cents. Now, this is a reminder, phase 1 is the aviation piece that is currently subleased by Signature Flight Support. The rental rate for that 36 year for phase 2 will be $11.02. And that is the currently developed, the parcel that was developed several years ago that encompasses the retail, office, and restaurant uses. And for phase 3, which the board accepted the 100% plans in September, the rental rate at that year will be $11.02 a square foot. For the 41st year of the lease option period, the rate will be 92 cents a square foot for phase 1, $12.48 per square foot for phase 2, and $12.48 per square foot for phase 3. For the 46th year, the 3rd and final lease option period, the rate will be $1.05 per square foot for phase 1, $14.12 per square foot for phase 2, and $14.12 for phase 3. I must state a caveat that Premier's legal counsel is reviewing these numbers. We believe that they are correct, but there is going to be some further verification, and Richards representing Premier is here. There was some email communication yesterday, or actually late last week, I believe, among the 3 appraisers where there were some corrections of typographical errors and some mathematical errors. But Premier has requested the opportunity to verify these numbers. Is that my understanding is correct, Ms. Patrick?
Yes.
So our recommendation is that these are the numbers subject to this further verification. Airport Legal Counsel, as I said, has prepared this memorandum of agreement, memorandum of understanding that captures and memorializes the process for exercising those options per the lease agreement, as well as the rental rates that are articulated as determined through the appraisal process and contemplated in the lease. Therefore, we recommend that the airport authority adopt resolution 11/31/21, authorizing a memorandum of understanding concerning the Premier Aviation LLC lease with the airport authority.
And as our attorney, we can approve this subject to Premier's agreement later on. Is that permitted? Are we allowed to make a motion like that? Or was that your question?
That's my question.
You can approve it, and you can delegate to Clara the authority to execute it.
subject to the confirmation that the numbers are correct. The numbers are coming from our appraiser, who has communicated with Premier's appraiser. And so it's just making sure that everyone's on the same page. You would not be delegating to the executive director the ability to vary from the terms, but this is strictly a mathematical exercise. And if all parties are in agreement on the math, then the delegation
And
would
there is a process
extend.
in place for the math, as I understand.
Correct. This is just by operation of existing lease terms. And the point of the document is simply to have an easy thing to refer to, but all the parties to say, this is how the existing lease terms are implemented. It does not vary from the terms of the existing lease. And so your execution authority given to the executive director is not agreeing to anything new.
And if,
So I'll ask the representative from Premier, are you prepared this time to agree to the math yet, or are you still reviewing it?
Yeah, we have one little tweak that we
Okay.
found just tonight, and so we've agreed to present that to staff.
Okay, and then you want to do that now, or are you going to do that after?
No, we'll do it as a.
So then I'll ask you the second question, which is, are you agreeable to this approach to do this with working the math out later on?
and Mr. Chair, if I could be clear, I think the intent is to have the appraisers concur,
Yes, understood.
not to have
Yeah.
Premier and the airport
Not the
authority,
attorneys, yes.
do our own separate math, and then it's for the appraisers to clarify, because it does appear to be a typographical error in one of the appraisals. So we want them, the three parties, as has been the process thus far, to tell us, to verify these numbers. So there may, the changes may be, by cents, so it's not just exactly de minimis, but it may be a small amount.
And if I can just clarify for the record, the Premier came to us, the executive director and myself, with a proposed lease amendment. I said, you're not amending the lease, you're really just identifying implementation of the lease. And we sent it to our appraiser. When he was reviewing their numbers, he found in one instance a typographical error, in the second instance a mathematical error. He reached out to each of those appraisers and said, am I right? They sent back emails saying, yes, you are right. So we believe this process has already happened, but because we have given this information to Premier fairly recently, they didn't want to wait till the December board meeting. They wanted it to be heard tonight, but they do need to check to make sure that our representations, that the two other appraisers agree with the findings of our appraiser, which is reflected in the calculations in Exhibit A, that those are accurate. So we don't think there needs to be any change to Exhibit A, but we want to create the space for Premier to do its own due diligence to make sure that they understand why we're saying this is correct.
I mean, there's really nothing for us to debate or discuss other than to understand the process that we're adhering to, right? I mean, it kind of is what it is. And the other thing is, this is something that is what, 15 years in the future?
Yes.
So-
But they have,
Yeah.
but they have indicated some anxiety about getting this memorandum in place for business reasons. And so we wanted to move with all haste to accommodate their desire.
Okay, thanks for describing the process. Gene, yes, sir.
Just a clarification, what we're discussing here is a land lease, correct?
That is correct.
Now, the square footage that's listed here, that was determined some time ago, right?
Yes.
The plot, it's all been,
Yes, so there's a survey.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that everybody
Yes, and
understands.
each phase is sort of its own separate legal
And it's
description.
been that
with
way
it.
for,
That is correct. So
Yep.
the square footage of the parcel does not change. It has not changed since the lease was executed in 2000.
Any other questions about the item? Did I get a motion? Have I done that? A motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Randy, Sherry, second. All right, any other questions? I think we got the process now and the people are in agreement. So any other questions at all? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, good luck with that. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to folks from Premier as well. Okay, next item 9. Executive Director and staff reports, the noise abatement and operations summary, Mr. Robert Adams.
As you're aware, we do not have signature flight sports fuel in the report last, when we sent the report out, but this here does include those numbers. So the final numbers that we show. So during the month of October, we had 7,721 operations, which is 34% more than operations of October of 2020. It's also up 11% from operations in October of 2019. Jet A deliveries were up 54% from October of 2020, and they were also up 60% from October of 2019. Avgas deliveries were down 100%. So Avgas deliveries were down 100% for both October 2020 and 2019, at least due to not receiving deliveries during the month. We did have 9 different households that filed concerns on our noise hotline this month. Most of these again were for the arrivals for runway 5. We did have a few on the departures on either end of the runway as well. During October, we had 108 aircraft clearings at customs. It's up to 50 of last October. It's also up from October 2019, 73. We had no vessels cleared during this month. We had come from 20 different countries, and you can see their locations up there from all over the place pretty much. We also had 34 after hours clearance during the month, and 17 of these occurred on the Tuesdays and Wednesdays when the facility was moving closed. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So, Mr. Chairman, as some of you know, I'm a resident of Boca Bath Tennis Club. So for the second month in a row, I see a resident has chimed in on noise. So I'm bringing along, Robert, to pass to you the newsletter for Boca Bath Tennis Club, which is called The Babble. And I suggest that maybe you work with the editor or the property manager here on maybe putting a proactive message in here. And then maybe at some point, if you feel that it's important to schedule with the HOA, a meeting where you can make a presentation about what we're doing. I think, because I just, 3 times is a trend. And because it's my neighborhood, I just want to make sure that all of my neighbors are fully up to speed on what we're doing.
Oh, it's not you.
Good one.
That's a good idea.
No.
It is.
I'm glad you brought this up because I called Clara this week because I'm concerned about the automated hitting the button. The numbers keep going up, and we need to address it. Because not too many years ago, you remember, Gene, we were down to 4 or 5 noise calls a month. We know what's happening now with the automated system. In addition, with our ops going up to 7,700 last month, we're approaching very easily this year, maybe 85,000 operations and climbing for what I'm seeing of the jet traffic when I'm out here at the airport. And so I mentioned to Clara that I know we're starting a new year. We're doing a good job with the noise. I don't have any, and the airplanes are getting quieter. But there are people, and I've done this in my military and civilian life. They see an airplane, they perceive noise. And I think we need to maybe think about getting, as I mentioned, as Clara and I discussed, based on, especially with that, a bit more proactive, because eventually, you know what's going to hit the fan. And there's no reason for it to happen. So I think we need to start thinking about this as we go into the new year.
And I discussed the same thing with Clara this week as well, that, I think maybe there might be even a video that we might think about producing. It shows the different decibel levels.
Contours, yeah.
Exactly. That I think would be very helpful to the cause. But yeah, I'm in total agreement, because if we don't get a handle on this, next thing we know, we got Channel 5 doing the story and, getting everybody kind of riled up.
It's a no-win situation.
Yeah. So I always like to err on the side of being ahead of it.
Good point. Great minds think alike.
Ms. Bennett, you'll take that under.
Yes, sir. And I think I mentioned to both of you and to Mr. Chair as well that Robert is working on a And he may go into it a little bit more at the next item related to the noise monitoring terminals. So we would like to showcase some of the capabilities of the noise monitoring system, the tons of data that we collect, because we don't really spend a lot of time talking about that. And also some trends on noise levels, as you mentioned, Mr. Pollack, with the actual real world data that we collect. And so the plan currently is we'll do a year-end summary in January of 2021. And maybe implement that on a quarterly basis or something along those lines so that people have a perspective. So if they see, yes, the aircraft, it's getting busier and more people are calling, but the actual noise levels, where are we on those and what relative to other community noise? So that's something that we're planning on doing. That's in the works.
Thank you. Yes, sure.
Apropos of Mr. Tucker's suggestion that we contact the editor, can we look at that in a global context and give us a little bit of summary on where we are now and where we're going to be in the very near future on our community outreach program? Because it's a great idea to do it because your neighborhood, but it's a better idea for it to be in a whole program, it's all the neighborhoods, multiple messages, multiple times, follow-up feedback, and so forth.
Absolutely, and when Mr. Tucker mentioned that to me during our one-on-one meeting, that's exactly kind of what I went back to Rob and said, I think we need to expand it. I think I mentioned also you're very active, Mr. Folden, in the Federation of Homeowners Association, so that might also be a vehicle for us. So, yes, of course, absolutely, social media, but reaching directly with the homeowner associations. We've done a lot of outreach in the past with Via Verde, which is where this community is, and that encompasses so dozens of different communities affected by the arrivals. So I think we're all on the same page, and kind of everyone is independently coming up with the same notions. So we're going to take that now that we have Vanessa here as well. So Rob and Vanessa and I are going to come together and put a little bit of a program, and I look forward to getting input from each of you individually on some other thoughts. I love the idea of the video that we can post, and I also think targeted outreach to the associations through their newsletters. That gives them tells them who to call and where to go on our website and things like that. Rob and Vanessa have done some updates to the website recently specifically on the noise pages, so that this would be a great time to kind of push that out to the neighbors.
Just sticking with Bob's point on the newsletter. So does Wimbledon Villas have a newsletter?
I don't know. I know that our outreach has been through Via Verde, and it's been at least 3 years, I think, since they invited us. And we wait to be invited, but maybe we know the folks over there. I think we might know somebody who might still be associated with them over there, and maybe through the Master Association and management company. That's probably the most efficient way of getting the information out through to all the various individual associations in Via Verde, but then also East. So obviously Via Verde, they're impacted primarily by arrivals, but then there are neighborhoods East, and that's where perhaps we can enlist the help of the Federation of Homeowner Associations in Boca. So we're on it, and we'll come back and hopefully in January with more, or maybe, I don't know if we'll have it ready, at least on the outline in December, but we'll keep you apprised of what the kind of more coordinated efforts are and will continue to be.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, that sounds like the timing is right for a more proactive approach. Yes, Gene.
I'd also like if we could include to determine what the noise level increase has been from I-95, because a lot of these people in Wilmington down in there live within noise, within earshot, if you will, of I-95. And obviously we all know that noise level has increased substantially as well.
I think the system gives us community noise. So yeah. So those are you're right on point. Those are the capabilities that the system has that we use and we look at as a staff, but we're not really messaging that out to the communities. I think it's important to do that.
We might find out if the background noise is well above 55 decibels, it's considered normal.
Particularly if we can go back and see what the increase slope has been.
Yeah, we have all the historical.
Great.
data, so we
All right,
can
that'd be
back
good.
up.
Good point.
Great,
Thank you.
very good. Yeah, good discussion. Thank you.
Thank
Good ideas. And speaking of good timing, our next item is perfect timing for this. The noise monitoring and flight tracking system and noise monitor service and maintenance contract. So again, Robert, Alex will make the presentation. Robert?
So back in December of 2017, the airport authority entered into an agreement with L.P. Harris for the noise monitoring, flight tracking, and maintenance of those things there. The initial term was for January 1st, 2018, a 3-year term, but also had the option for 2 1-year terms. We did the last 1-year term, or the first of the 1-year terms last year. That's expiring at December 31st of 2021. So we would like to go into and offer the extension for the final 1-year renewal period that will be January 1st, 2022 through the end of the year. I'd have put together a quick presentation to kind of show kind of what we get from L.P. Harris and all their software. So it's done. All right, so we have 7 noise monitoring terminals. They're Larson Davis models. You can see on the map there, those are their locations. We have 3 of them off of the departure for 5 up in the north, and then we have 3 down at the where we normally see the arrivals coming for runway 5. They also grab the departures going the other way. Then we have the one that's kind of right here in the FAU Preserve area that kind of gets the overall sound of the airport. Those are, go back for 1 second there. L.P. Harris handles all the maintenance on it. They're leased from L.P. Harris, so we kind of have a hands-off approach on them. So it's a little easier for us. They monitor them remotely. If they notice anything is off, they'll send a tech out. Sometimes they'll contact me if something they think is easy enough to just go out and reset it real quickly. But most of the time they'll get a tech out here. They're calibrated annually, so they're always accurate. They usually get February. Let's put them out. Next one. And they also give us our public view. So it's kind of an overarching what it looks like, public view, which is what the public can look at with the noise monitoring. It's a 10-minute security delay, so it's pretty much live feed. And it also shows live feed of the noise monitors. You can actually see some of the ambient noise just that way if you're looking at it live. So you can see up there, that was a live picture. And it kind of shows what the decibel readings are about in the low 50s, right about there with no aircraft overhead. Here's the next one. Also shows a couple of the other things you can do with public view. Any arrivals coming in on an IFR flight plan will show up automatically no matter where they are in the country and even the world. You can see some up there in Canada, so it shows them already getting ready to come in. So anyone who wants to look and see the aircraft that are arriving far out. You can also issue noise concerns directly through there as well. So you can do a replay of it. The one on the right is actually a historical replay, which is why you see all the noise monitors blue there. That's not working. That's just on a historical replay. It only shows you an aircraft is triggering the sound. But you can click on an aircraft and you can see all about it. You can issue a complaint directly from the software. So you can know if you're getting the one you want. Some tracks, you can play it back.
Most of these come in that way?
We get a handful of them, so there's a couple people who like to do it that way more than others. But we do see several come in this way, and it's good that it links it up right away. There is another way they can issue a concern through the public view that doesn't involve clicking on an aircraft. They don't know exactly which one it is. They can go and just issue a vague concern. I didn't see it, but I just heard it. So
Gene, I think Gene has a question.
Yeah, what is the delay time?
that's 10 minutes.
10-minute delay. Could you go back to the first slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Second, there you go. If I'm not mistaken, number 7 is the button pusher people.
That is the one that's in Wimbledon. Yes, that's where all the buttons
Okay.
currently reside.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's our newest monitor.
That's the one that we installed most
Yes, I
recently, that
remember
we
that.
added specifically for that
For that.
community.
Yeah, okay.
Rich, yes.
Yeah, so to Gene's point, take one step further. So that's where the button pushes are, where the volume is coming from. What about 5? How do they compare? Because you would think, I'm not a pilot, but I would think that you would would have a similar experience at 7 and Cougars 5.
Yeah, 5 is not in a residential community.
Oh, it's not.
It's close by to some residential areas, but it's not directly in it like 7. And 7 is like right in the middle of the way. So that one's more off of the little shopping center right there on Military.
But it is very close to Fairfield.
Yeah, they are.
Community,
Yeah.
and a big difference and a major reason I believe that we don't get very many calls at all from that community is we have a navigation easement in that neighborhood. So before those homes were built, the authority was protected through the rezoning process with a navigation easement. So when people buy there, move in there, they know that you will be subject to overflights and a right of flight and noise and dust, et cetera. That comes
Fairfield.
with the easement.
Right by the Crocker Center or Focus
Yes,
Center?
it's right by the.
Right
that's
behind
right.
it, okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes, it's right off of Military and that, so. Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think that awareness before people move in, and it's also, I think, maybe slightly off center,
It
the
is
approach.
just slightly off.
Right, right. They're slightly off the rec over, extended center line. We have other navigation easements, as you know, on the east side of Boca, right around the corner here.
This is the environmental view portal. This is the one we use in-house. The public doesn't have access to it unless they request for some information from it. So the one on the left is just like a weekend or so of flight tracks. The blue are the departures and some touch and goes with it, looped into blue. And then the red are arrivals. You can kind of see just holistic picture of like a lot, what's going on. You can also click on individual flight tracks, so I can do that, see altitudes and speed on just specific areas of the flight track. You can follow it all the way around. On the right is just it shows you kind of some of the tools that I can work with. There's gates you can create at the corridor that kind of tracks to see if aircraft are doing some of our departures that we have as a voluntary procedures. That shows the 95 turn that we kind of have as a voluntary procedure there. If they go on the other side, I can see if they're following it or not. Just kind of gives us some feedback on what's actually happening.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
And this is one of the just one of the noise data that we do collect. This might be some of what we're thinking of including in that annual report. I can get that for every monitor, and we do that for historical, such just compares noise monitor 1, which is off the departure of the 5. 2019 to 2021, you can see it pretty much shows the number of noise events at the noise monitors, how high they are, and if they were linked to an aircraft. So it's just going to show the aircraft linked noise events. And then the bottom axis is the decibel level. The top is how many. So you can see even 2019 to 2021, it follows almost exactly the same pattern. And you can see as well the arrivals and departures, see what it is that's really bothering people or what is triggering noise events. So we'll have more data like this in our annual report as well. So that covers that. And then I will read the resolution here. So airport management does recommend approval of resolution number 112721, granting a final 1-year renewal of the agreement with L3 Paris, from January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022.
Robert, motion, take.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it the final 1-year renewal or the first 1-year renewal?
This is the final 1-year renewal. We did the
Final.
first one. Yeah, we already did the first one.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Question? Yep. All right, so what should we expect to be discussing in the second half of next year regarding this? Another renewal? Or are we going to put out the bid again?
We need, the contract will expire at the end of next calendar year. This is the last available opportunity for extension. So Rob and the team and I will work together on putting the specs. We probably will do very similar to what we did last time. So but as he mentioned, it's very beneficial to us to have the vendor provide the microphones so that we don't have to own them and repair them. That's part of what they provide. So we're going to work on specs. We'll release the specs as through a request for proposals, and we'll select sometime in the second half of next year.
What I want to say is L3 Harris is really top of the line with this business. And when they came in and replaced the other firm, they actually replaced all the equipment,
That's
which release, which they keep updating. I'm not saying we reselect them again, there'll be competition, but they're really top notch. And I think from what I've seen, doing a great job.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Motion approved. Contract extension. Next item is the public transportation grant agreement for financial project. The state of Florida Department of Transportation for airfield and ATCT generator replacement and upgrades. And Robert Abbott, you do that again? Okay, Robert, go ahead.
As the Florida Department of Transportation has offered us the PTGA for airfield and ETCT generator replacement upgrades. This will replace the generator at the air traffic control tower as well as our electrical vault, which runs all of the airfield lighting out in the field, our electrical, our gates, all that kind of stuff. So they'll all be upgraded, including the fuel tanks and all the associated hardware with the generators. The budget for the project is $200,000. That will be 80% or 160,000 from the FDOT, with the airport authority bringing in the other 20%. So with that, airport management recommends approval of resolution number 112821, authorizing the public transportation grant agreement with the state of Florida Department of Transportation for airfield and ATCT generator replacement.
Motion for that. Okay, a second.
Second.
Okay,
Gas,
questions?
yeah, gas or
Natural.
propane or
Diesel.
Okay. It's air diesel.
Other questions? Anything else? Sounds like a good deal. Yep. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Robert. Public transportation grant agreement for financial project with the state of Florida on the SMS Safety Management System Program. And Robert, you'll handle this one as well. Robert?
Yes, the Florida Department of Transportation has operated under a public transportation grant agreement for the Safety Management System Program. As you may remember, the authority created an SMS gap analysis back in 2017. So now we're going to use the results of the SMS gap analysis to implement a safety management system program. So the total project budget for that is $200,000. Again, with an 80% FDOT share, which is $160,000, and the airport authority. So with that, airport management recommends the approval of resolution number 112921, authorizing a public transportation grant agreement with the state of Florida Department of Transportation for safety management system SMS program.
Okay.
Motion.
Motion, okay. Thank you.
Second.
Mitch, second, okay. Yes, questions? Yeah.
What exactly does this mean? Is it a computer program, combination observation program? I'm not even, what exactly am I looking at here?
Yeah, it is a combination. The SMS program will use computer software as well in it. But it's going to be, so there's a safety policy that will be created with the program that will kind of describe all the organizational commitments to safety. Also have to look at that. There's also then, they'll take a look at the safety risk management. There's a whole slew of things that includes. It's going to be determining all of the hazards. So we'll have to do a lot of looking into the hazards.
Does this come, do these lists of hazards and things come from FDOT or FAA or NTSB or?
They'll be like looked at here. So like the contractor, will go through and look at the specifics that we deal with at the airport.
The contractor?
Yeah, so the condo will.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it'll be.
I'm just trying to figure out what, put my arms around it.
So there will be a consulting aspect of it and then developing the program
Oh, okay.
itself, but there will also be software that's purchased so that there are standard safety management system software packages out there.
Okay.
We'll have to find one that's more tailored to our uses versus John F. Kennedy
And
International
that
Airport or
was my
something.
question.
So there'll be
A picture
combination, the
of
program,
What this
right.
is.
There'll be programmatic things as well as software things, and then there will be procedural
Oh, good.
policy things that we implement as an organization as well, along with the tenants.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the SMS program? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Robert. Next item is the general consultant engineer of record for the Boca Raton Airport Authority. So, Mr. Scott Coet, you're gonna handle that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The item before you is for the general consultant and engineer of record for the authority. That contract covers a multitude of things, all the design of the projects that have just been approved, some of the programmatic planning processes, the master plan that's underway. It also covers some grant assistance, assisting with the applications to grants for FAA and FDOT funds, and also project monitoring. So it's, our team out on the airport road, making sure that the contractors are complying with the requirements of the contract. This contract was signed back in January of 2017. It was a 5-year term with 3 optional 1-year extensions. So we are coming up to the end of that initial 5-year term. And Airport Management recommends approval of Resolution 113021 of the Boca Raton Airport Authority approving renewal of the contract between the Airport Authority and Recondo and Associates Incorporated for general consultant engineer of record of the Boca Raton Airport Authority for a period beginning February 1, 2022 and ending midnight January 31st, 2023. We also have Mr. Pete Recondo from Recondo and Associates in the audience if you have any questions for him or myself.
So you said this is the first 1-year extension.
First of 3 optional 1-year renewals. So there'll be 2 other opportunities to renew if the board so chooses.
Okay, so we have a motion and I'll look for a second. Cheryl, a second. So now we can have questions. I'm sorry, I
So
jumped
then
in.
we would go
Cheryl.
out for contract again after the 3rd extension.
Right, each subsequent extension, the recommendation would be brought back to the
Right.
board. If at any point there's a decision made not to extend, then at that point we would go back. Nonetheless, if all 3 options are exercised, then we would go through that process again. And that process is actually governed by statute. So there's Florida statutes that we would follow whenever we go forward with it.
Remind, just as an add-on to Cheryl's question, remind me on the history so we haven't talked about this for 5 years since we hired Recondo. Were they in this position prior to that, correct?
That is correct. When we last put it out through the CCNA process, there were 2 firms. Recondo was one of 2 firms that responded, and they were ranked number 1. The process allows for, if there's no ability to negotiate a contract after the selection or the ranking rather, then you can go to the next one, et cetera. But there were 2 that proposed rather last time that responded.
And does the state have any directives, guidelines, or mandates as to how many times a particular entity of record can be contracted?
I'm not aware of any. I can research that and report back to you.
Okay. And a question I had is, I didn't see, maybe I missed it in the paperwork. Is there a change in the fee with the 1-year extension, or the fee remains the same?
The fee remains the same, I believe, and it's based on the different disciplines. So any given project will have, a CAD tech, maybe a
Yeah.
senior consultant, junior consultant, et cetera.
Or something.
And so each of those individual tasks are negotiated. So when we go to Recondo to do the design and installation of the generator stuff, they'll give us what they think it costs. It'll be a little back and forth. We'll look at it and make sure that, the hours make sense and everything lines up and it meets our needs. And then it's on a task order basis is how we award the work.
And what we're reviewing are not the rates, as those rates are established when the contract is awarded. However, what we look at is the number of hours at the appropriate level of position within the company. There are things for which you need a principal in charge involved. There are things for which you don't. So Pete knows we tend to push back a little bit on some of that, but he's always very cooperative in working with us, make sure that we have the right team assembled to do the work.
No?
Are the rates set for the total length of the contract, or are the rates COLA adjusted every year?
No, there's no adjustments.
No adjustment. Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Congratulations. Wishes on that. Airport project updates. Travis Bryan.
Mr. Chair, do a quick rundown of a few things we have either ongoing now or soon to start in the near future. start with A number one. Everyone's driven down Airport Road and its current state. A couple things have gone on since the last update here. A fair amount of sidewalk has gone in, including some drainage structures, some plumes, curbing, drains. Everyone's seen they widen the road a little bit to the west side, put the first layer of temporary asphalt down to facilitate closing down the east side so they can do a lot of the drainage curbing. Since I actually typed this update in, we took taken delivery of the FPL poles and they've installed roughly 2/3 of those at the moment. So those are going down. It looks like just a few snippets of sidewalk getting poured and formed up. That's one of the poles getting sunk in. It's not going to be in the middle of the sidewalk. It's going to be where that back truck sunk in. It's going to be a base for the back. So that would be a little misleading. Yeah. There was a little bit better photo I had, but I didn't include it because it included someone taking over. They're actually having to use a back truck to excavate this instead of drilling due to the vast majority of utilities on the ground there. Water mains, sewer, you name it, plus all the additional stuff we just buried underneath there. So they actually have to do soft digs with a back truck and move a foot or two one way or the other just to avoid everything instead of just drilling down with a big auger bit, hitting half the stuff. Okay.
Travis, have there been any increase in traffic accidents or any issues or complaints coming in?
I've not been aware of any additional traffic accidents. I know that speeding is still an issue. We still have PD making nice surprise appearances and issuing some quotas, excuse me, tickets for the airport road. But that has helped a little bit. The increased number of barrels in MOT and lane change signs and things like that seem to help a little bit as well.
Yeah, it seems like they got a lot of good safety precautions out there.
We make it a point too to drive extra slow with our strobe lights on and really back all the cars up nicely going down Airport Road to make sure they're doing the speed limit whenever we're out there. Any stuff upcoming in the very near future is going to be additional milling and paving, some landscape installation. I believe our landscape architects will make a site visit tomorrow, go over a couple things as we go forward. So hope for continued good weather. Excuse me. Next one was the taxiway relocation and widening project. Issued a admin notice to proceed not very long ago. We're actually planning to kick this project off and actually start digging December 6th. We're about to start sending tenant notices out. We just notified our air traffic control manager today of that. As soon as we get an official schedule developed, we're actually today, tomorrow, out with the environmentalists, scoping out, looking at the owl burrows to see what's in the job site, if anybody's home, that type of thing. This will widen taxiway Papa 4 up to the current design group standards because as of right now, the only thing we'll have to use is piston aircraft because it is the narrowest one we have. Also widen taxiway Foxtrot, exit off the runway and relocate the two others that are currently aligned with exits to the apron area, which don't meet FAA guidelines anymore. They want you have to do at least some type of turn to exit a ramp and not have direct access to a runway. So that's going to realign those a little bit. It's still going to maintain the same amount of flow and efficiency we have, but just slightly moving just a little bit so they don't present a danger in the future. Hopefully that's all goes relatively smoothly. Like I said, we're going to kick this off in December, and we will be closing down 5 nights a week for the whole airport closures from 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. Sunday nights through Thursday nights. Hopefully this project lasts about 90 days. Next, I'll go ahead and just go down the memo item here just because some of them aren't very picturesque. The security enhancements phase, currently nearing the 90% or just got 90% deliverables we're reviewing in-house. That's basically replacing the entire camera system here, the video recorders, adding a multitude of other cameras in additional locations to better capture different angles we've identified since the last project. Some run-up areas where when we were having DFRs and we were kind of getting a lot of traffic, and they're a little long of a stretch from the tower. Also a few of our own and customs, so we can better identify the ramp activity over there. That building has a multitude of cameras in it that are customs. So we're putting a few of our own over there. And just a few other additional things, all the switches and hardware at all the gates, additional surge suppression, and duplicate look at a triplicate to try to prevent future lightning strike problems in all states, or we can mitigate some of the major issues. And basically just bring everything up to date, because as everyone's aware of technology, it's about by the time you actually bolt it in, it's about time to look for new stuff again. So we're hoping to have this one evaluated out on the street sometime maybe beginning of the year, and go from there. Next on the list is GIS Phase 2. Recently completed a Phase 1 project, which is basically the data gathering for everything. For GIS, we try to take into account all your assets and everything, and you can put in different layers. For instance, say our airfield lights and signs, they're all given a GPS coordinate and their own identifier. So with the Phase 2, we can roll it out into a software and a tablet-based system with different layers, to where maybe I see what do our underground utilities look like. You pull up that layer, or what do our airfield lighting and signage look like. You can identify the age of the sign, what the type, or integrate it into our inspection software, to where, let's say, the security guards at night doing a light inspection, instead of having to write down what sign it is or take a photo of it, they can just drop the pin, it's right next to it. It automatically goes to our system. Just a little bit of integration of technology with what's available out there today. Plus, it's also a database form to where it's trend tracking, and say you can spot something, one particular area is going bad more frequently than the other. Why? Do we need to look at something additional, that type of thing? You know, any additional data, kind of like all the noise monitoring stuff, you can play with it years down the road and kind of evaluate, man, this worked, or this isn't, that kind of thing. Another one, don't have photos for yet. Currently in the design phase of the tower radio communications electronics upgrades. The majority of all the electronics, the radios, antennas, cabling, all that from the tower, or at least 10 years old, if not older, and nearing the end of their expected life cycle, if not having to be serviced and replaced more frequently. This would encompass the entire replacement of the majority of all the RO equipment up there. All the radios, the backup radios, antennas, new cabling, surge suppression systems, couple other odds and ends, new IT rack, and a few other things up there. Have to rearrange a few things in the IT room just to be able to fit, because we can't just unplug a radio while the new one's going in. We have to maintain service. So a little bit of finagling, running cable. That's currently in design. We hope to have that out in the street sometime next year as well. This will just have a couple snippets. Just quick, recently had the engineers out on the field for a survey ahead of this, the Navigates airfield lighting upgrades. A lot of the current electrical system out in the field itself, a lot of the signage, the lights are still from the 90s, and have basically met their, or greatly exceeded their expected life expectancy. We're seeing big increase in repair, service, and also some of the older stuff is the availability of parts, all the old incandescent fixtures, everyone's switching to LEDs instead of having to just put small repair parts. We're having to put all the LED conversion kits and the signs. They've basically just kind of seen their better day. So they had a walk the entire place and took a survey of every single thing we have, including underground cabling. The generators can get with a different project, but the regulators involved, a bunch of the other electrical equipment, and see about putting together a package, but sometime next year out to bid to upgrade everything. So the runway lighting will be going all LED. Taxiway lighting already is, but it's nearing its end of life, so that will be upgraded as well. Underground cabling, all new signage to LEDs. So hopefully see a good cost savings too with the electrical. And a lot more consistent, bright runway pictures. And we already touched on the safety management system and the generator replacement that will be upcoming. Now they just read the department. And one quick answer to the question: yes, diesel generators. One side benefit to that being here at the airport in a pinch, if there's a diesel shortage during a hurricane, if there's jet fuel at the airport, it will help on that one interchangeable. So
Thousands of dollars.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, great update, Travis, but my favorite project is not mentioned, and that would be the observation area. So just wondering how.
You mean Clara's observation?
Yes, what did Tom call it?
So, what's, can you, it's been a
It's
few
still planning
months.
to happen. It's currently on hold temporarily while the master plan, it has some additional reviews done by the FAA. Basically, long story short, they just have to be agreeable to our modification standards for our runway safety areas for the master plan. We have board because theoretically, with a larger aircraft, we need larger safety areas, which is nearly impossible to meet. With what currently out of the airport, technically this building would be in it. So, and the future observation area would be in it. So as long as we get an approval modification standards again to maintain what we currently have, the observation area would fit right in line with it. So it's just,
Is there precedent for that?
there's a current modification standard right now in
For this
place.
building?
Yeah, well, for the entire airport.
That allowed the building to be built.
Yes.
Right.
Right, so basically it says that,
In other words, we don't have too much for that.
well, it's just the length of time of the review, and I'll hit on it in my next item, but we've been trying to get an answer on the modification of standards from FAA since July, I think, right? June, July. And there's just a variety of reasons. It appears from what we're hearing through the staff level at FAA that they're modifying the review process for modifications to standards, because the alternative is, as you saw when we presented it to you, to move the runway, which we would have nowhere to go, or to move the taxiway, which would impact the tenants to the extent that it would shut down so much of their activity that we probably wouldn't need to move a modification, because we wouldn't have jets coming in and out of here anyway. So some of the hints, and Pete, you may be able to answer, that we've received from them, of course, non-committal, seem positive. It's just, I think they're working through their internal review process. And I think now with the infrastructure bill coming down the line, they just are so swamped and behind. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on the mods.
No, we've had like 3 or 4 modification standards that we've been working besides Clara's and local airport and other airport, and they just go backlog. This one is particularly difficult because none of the other modification standards is going to propose improvement. This one has them a little bit baffled because of what Ms. Bennett said. It's an existing position, and they're not the modification standards process that they typically follow. Usually it's this, so with the target clarity, something that raising the issue with master plan.
I think the fact that we have the existing modification to standard in place with the existing procedures that we discussed during the workshop through air traffic, and that we have these aircraft based here and coming in and out of here safely, I think those are all very positive things. So it's not a new use of the airfield that is unusual or unexpected. These are existing conditions, but it's a modification to standards on top of a modification to standards. So I think that they're just sort of a little bit baffled with what to do with it.
Okay, any other questions? Travis, good job. Lots of projects going on. Thank you.
Maybe during public.
Next item is 9G, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 grant acceptance. And Ms. Bennett, you'll handle that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As stated in the background memo, we received notice from FAA last week, late breaking as we were finalizing the agenda, that we are eligible for $148,000 in grant funding as part of the stimulus package that was passed in the summer, American Rescue Plan Act. Similar to the other 2 rescue package provisions, we are eligible based on a formula basis as per our designation in the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems as a reliever airport. So we're kind of, for general aviation airports, we get the highest amount allocated. We're not getting the $200 million that Miami International Airport got, but we can rest that assured that we're getting the most of the GA airport category. So the law allows for the grant funding to be used for a variety of different eligible uses, such as sanitizing and cleaning and those kinds of things that are outlined. But for us, it's easier, simpler for Robert, who has to submit these grant reimbursements. to do payroll because we're all doing so many of the things as individuals here. So the request is for, as with the others, is for a motion to authorize the executive director to accept the grant offer when it is made. That would allow then Ms. Petrick to attest that I indeed have the authority to sign and encumber the airport authority with the grant assurances that come with each grant. So that is our recommendation.
$148,000.
Yes.
So moved.
Motion, okay, thank you. Second, okay, Cheryl. And any other questions? Yes. No.
I have two questions. Will we be kept up to date on how the money is spent, or is that not a requirement? Or would that be a nicety to the board or not?
Sure. I absolutely, I'd be happy to, as I said, it consistent with what we've done with the other two projects, or the other two grant offers that we have accepted in the last 18 months. We are most likely going to submit for reimbursement of payroll expenses because it's administratively the simplest and fastest. And that's what FAA kind of encourages you to do anyway. They say, payroll is eligible, so you might want to just submit the
I
payroll.
think
So
it's a good
be
PR
happy
on our
to,
website.
yes, absolutely. I'd be happy to, when that process is complete, when the grant offer is made and the project and the grants are received, to come back to you and let you know.
Thank you.
So any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, authority board member requests and reports. Robert? Gene, anybody have any issues?
I would just say that I thought the tenant tailgate that Claire and team did a few weeks ago was terrific.
Great.
It was wonderful football weather. Great to see a lot of people. Wonderful organization that we gave the money to. The only bad thing was the Owls lost.
Yeah, man, you're gonna be the band.
Any other comments? I had one, Clara, it's just, we just talked about the 2021 grant on the American Rescue Plan. And we just saw that the president signed a bill on the infrastructure plan. I know there's a lot of money going to airports. I don't know about general aviation. Have you had a chance to look at that bill and how that might affect us?
Yes, we had a call yesterday through the with the U.S. Contract Tower Association, the policy board, and on which I sit, and we were very active in securing and ensuring funding specifically, not just for all airports, obviously in general aviation airports, but specifically for the federal contract tower program, which is kind of unique, particularly for airports, for sponsor-owned towers at airports, in addition to the money that FAA gets for their F&E, their facilities and equipment. So very quickly, airport infrastructure funding, there's $15 billion for airport infrastructure grants over 5 years, with $3 billion to be distributed annually. Of that, $12.4 billion would go to commercial service airports and $2.5 for non-primary commercial service and general aviation airports. Unlike traditional airport improvement plan dollars, airports would have the flexibility to use the federal funds for PFC eligible projects, except that's for carrier airports. There's a new terminal program that bill would provide $5 billion over 5 years, or $1 billion annually for airport terminal programs. Again, that's more for our air carrier airports, as well as it'll include $100 million for those federal contract tower airports with sponsor-owned sponsor-owned towers, such as Boca Raton, which up till now have not received any federal funding for improvements. As you recall, improvements that we've made over the years to our facility have been funded through the state grant program. And those would be done on a cost share of 95% federal, 5% state, 5% local. Let's see, there's I said $100 million for general aviation airports and non-commercial airports. That will also be non-primary commercial airports. That will also be issued through this formula allocation, similar to the grant that the board just approved. And then there's also funding that goes to the FAA for its own towers through the F&E budget. So currently where it sits is, as you know, this is brand new. This was just issued last week and signed into law. So the FAA now is being charged with developing a program for how those funds would be meted out. Some will be, as I said, as entitlement through this allocation. A lot of the funds will also be competitive grants, similar to those grants that we compete for, like the taxiway project that we just received. So the mechanics of how the program will be rolled out will be worked through both in terms of our grant program, primarily through the airport's district office, the airport's office, and our airport's district office in Orlando, and some that we're not a part of through the ATC project, ATC division.
So you're on top of it, you'll keep your eye on it.
Yes, and as for, like I said, for federal contract tower, that is a program that is, as you know, as the board knows, Boca Raton was kind of one of the early adopters of, and members of the Federal Contract Tower Association to protect the funding for contract towers when the issues were happening in 2013 with federal funding. And so it's a program that has a ton of bipartisan support. I'm very proud to serve on the board. I'm currently the vice chair of the board. So one of the provisions that we also included in the new bill is for to address the issue of retired air traffic controllers or FAA controllers being able to come into the contract tower program as employees of the contractors without having a penalty. So it's called the Contract Act. So a lot of good stuff coming down the line for airports. I will also be through the process trying to introduce my own little language. I don't know how successful we'll be, but we have support from the policy board on language related to FAA, that group that we mentioned last time. We talked about the windows. That is a construction arm of FAA. Currently, the law does not allow for them to work on non-federal facilities. So I thought, well, why can't we rewrite the law and maybe put a little one Claire Bennett, Boca Raton Airport loophole in there. The policy board loved it because there are many sponsor-owned airports. Of course, I haven't heard back from FAA yet, so I don't know how they feel about it, but it's at least an effort that we felt might bear fruit. So we'll keep you posted on that as well.
Thank you very much. I'm not hearing any, do we have any public comment? Anybody on board? I'm sorry,
There
Mitch,
is, I
I
think, one
apologize.
public
Hang on one second, Mitch, one more board.
Yeah, actually, one request. How do you all feel about the meeting on the 15th, moving it from 6 o'clock to 5 o'clock?
This is the December board meeting.
15th of December.
We're gonna be here at 4 o'clock for the pictures.
Right, that's one of the things.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up also.
Yeah. I'm fine.
Sure. I'm fine.
We need a motion?
Do we have I said, we
I
need a
think we have
quorum.
consensus. How's that?
Everyone shake your head. I don't know if we need a motion. We don't need a motion.
That means nothing.
We'll send out a meeting
Fine,
notice.
yeah.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
The
We're
photographer
gonna be here
will,
at 4 o'clock anyway.
the photographer will be here at 4. We'll have to expedite his process because he does tend to take a lot of pictures. We took some pictures of the staff a few weeks ago. They came out great. I know he'll do a good job for
So
this
5 o'clock.
distinguished group as well.
Correct.
4 o'clock for the photos. If you could
5
come
o'clock.
earlier, that'd be even better.
Okay.
Give him time, and then for 5 o'clock for the meeting. Ms. Landers, if you could please follow the process for reposting that.
2 quick questions on the photography. Is there going to be hair and makeup, particularly hair? And
Lots of hair.
what's the attire? Is it so? I mean, I think it might be good to have a consistent. look
Yes, I
for
agree
anything.
with that. I think Vanessa, the idea is to, this will go on all of, on our official correspondence as well as on our website. So ideally, kind of.
So ties or to
Business attire, whatever. I don't know that a tie is required. per se.
Yeah.
No. You're not gonna be here that day, are you?
It's no shave November.
No, I think consistent look with the tie.
Yeah,
Nice business look.
Professional.
Okay.
It's up to you. I
Alright.
think,
You want to take it one step, you want the guys to wear dark jackets?
Hey, I'm just putting it out there. Just,
Okay, thank you for that.
Use your best judge.
Claire, did you have?
I think Michael had it.
Okay, if you stand, introduce yourself and.
Mike
welcome.
Cosby, I'm the dean of the College of Aeronautics at the university. My question was just about the taxiway widening. Is that going to have any effect on our operation is there in the northwest corner of the field. Mostly it's P4 and P3 that I'm concerned about.
P3 is not gonna get touched. Papa 4 is gonna get widened, so during the time that's actually gonna get, do demolition and construction, that will be closed. Probably 5-day period, give or take. But
So you could
Papa
always come out.
5 may open for Atlantic tenants to come to that, so.
Okay.
It will impact you guys coming out of Papa 4, but it's kind of necessary. You can't build it up and widen and repave it without closing it.
That's 90 days, right? So-
The total project scope is 90 days, but for that phase should be around 45 days. We're not, demolition is not occurring everywhere at once. You're gonna do in certain sections, so we don't have the whole place to start.
Jose, how do you understand and introduce yourself?
Jose with Signature Flex Sports. Is there a need and requirement to do it on that specific timeline? Meaning, has there been consideration on moving this project for the summertime? Because I think even though it's an after hours quote unquote, there is still more operations that linger during this peak season than they do in the summer. So it will be more affecting operations during the season months than the off season.
The schedule is primarily driven by the grant. So unfortunately for us, the federal grant program, when those grants are released is in the fall, in September, at the end of their fiscal year. We have a lot of flexibility on the state grants because we can work with the state District 4 on phasing those grant releases so that they kind of follow a pattern. Unfortunately, that's what drove it in this case. And what ends up happening is you have to have a contract, a bid in hand to apply for the grant. And then the contractor has to hold those bids, I think, what, 120 days in this case?
Yeah, it's typically 91, 20, we pushed it to 150.
Yeah.
That's about the list.
And as you know, where the market, and so it would not be possible to get a grant, apply for a grant in June with bid in hand. Right, the DOT grants are budgeted, really. We establish a budget and then we work towards that budget. With FAA, it's great because they're awarding a grant with a contract bid in hand, which got moved. So, but there's no work during the holidays, those.
There's holiday breaks, there's other sides that benefit, but also there's less chance of delays due to weather.
Yeah,
A lot less rain delays. so,
Hurricanes.
We're fine. I'm just trying to advocate
No,
for the customers
understood.
that might linger and want to.
Yeah, the holiday breaks that we have in place is the entire week of Thanksgiving. Obviously, they won't be starting yet. And then the week of Christmas to the day after New Year's. So that,
If they ask.
And hopefully also President's Day, they'll be probably wrapping up or, at that point. punch list.
hopefully they'll be close. Yeah.
That's what probably be this weekend. So, yeah, so we don't disagree. It's just,
Yeah.
we got $2.5 million in federal grants, so.
Yeah, use it.
That's right.
You gotta use it, yes.
That's right.
Okay,
Use it or lose it.
any other business at all? Okay, miscellaneous, our next meeting is scheduled for December 15th at 5 p.m. And I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.